Hi, my name is Melisse Shaban, and I want to clarify a couple of things. Pam gave me a lovely introduction. Thank you. So, Steve and Kelly talked to you about the banking and investment side of things. I actually have to run these companies. And so the interesting part of my experience has been that private equity, and I don't know how many of you are interested in private equity or want to be interested in it or know the difference between private equity and venture capital, because there's a really big difference. So private equity guys typically buy businesses that are showing positive profit over 8 to 12 quarters. They typically don't get involved unless you've got a really profitable business. If you're a young business, venture capital will get into your business, and there's a lot more risk in venture and that kind of thing. So I've done a number of deals with private equity companies, and the difference between running a business and building a brand is critical. So some companies will buy a company because of the financial metrics of the company. You have revenues, you have costs, and you have EBITDA. And there are companies that need those aspects, and the better those aspects are, the higher they'll pay. But those are only some companies. So for us, Fakai, Strivectin, we're really brand builders. So we have to do all the things on the fundamental side. We've got to make sure our gross margins are in good place. We've got to control our variable cost. We've got to control our fixed cost. But at the end of the day, what sold Fakai and what will sell Strivectin is somebody thinks there's brand value there. And when they go to buy these businesses, they think they can actually capitalize on that brand value. So in Fakai's situation, and the slides are sort of boring, but Fakai's situation was you had Procter & Gamble, who was consolidating hair care businesses. Frederick's distribution was very small. Business was $50 million, really, when you netted it all out. Probably threw off 25 points of EBITDA. But their lens to it was they had hundreds and thousands of points of distribution around the world, so they could get leverage that I couldn't get. So that's what drove the multiple. And for Strivectin, the interesting part is going to be there are not a lot of sizable skincare companies left in the business anymore. Most of them are either small or very large and gone. So the challenge for us at Strivectin is to make sure that we continue the integrity and the equity of the brand, but also prove that it has international scalable distribution. Why is brand equity important? I work with a guy who says using Apple in any way is just totally wrong. You can't use them as a reference point because it's too good. But ultimately, what your brand equity really is your promise. What are you promising to your consumer? What are you promising to your investors? That's where the equity lies. I've had the luxury of working for some great entrepreneurs, and I would imagine many of you are great entrepreneurs as well. I actually ran Aveda for 4 years and then ran the Body Shop. So my card of crazy is pretty full. But these are guys who had real vision. They really believed in what they were doing, and they were the masters of their own brand equity. Some would argue or make the case that Aveda was actually a hair company, and from my perspective, it wasn't. It was a fragrance and lifestyle company that took its place through hair. Some would argue that the Body Shop was a personal care company. My argument would be is Anita was the first person to take cosmetics into freestanding retail stores, not using her own money. So she franchised them. So those brands were really important in 25, 30 years ago and set the stage. So as you think about what you're doing, and if you even want an exit strategy, you have to think about the quality of your brand. What's your DNA? What's your message? What's your tone? What's the elevator pitch? If I was to look at my friend Cheryl Snodgrass and say, what does code mean? It should come out in a sentence. It's critical to the outcome of what you're doing, especially if you're looking for an exit strategy. Strivectin's a funky little business. So this was a business that's been around for 8 years. actually started the cosmeceutical business. And these were guys who were in the diet business, running the business out of Salt Lake City, Utah. And this product was originally designed for stretch marks for muscle heads. These guys were selling stuff in GNC. Didn't know anything about the cosmetic business, nothing, but a $500 million business. What happened was they got the sense that women were using this product in a cult fashion, not unlike women used to use Preparation H on their eyes because of the shrink factor. So women were starting to use the product and they got wind of it. So they ran an ad. And they ran an ad for this new crazy anti-wrinkle product. And they said it was available in Nordstrom and Neiman Marcus. It was available in neither of those places. Neiman Marcus sued them, and Nordstrom placed their first order. And that's how this brand became an anti-aging skincare brand. So crafty, these guys. But the truth of the matter was, it was a backwards build. So they built this very clinical feel. They called it, you know, the name of the company was Strivectin by Klein Becker. Sounds very pharmaceutical, right? Klein Becker, Becton Dickinson. There was no Klein Becker, never existed. So all of these things they started to do to build a brand. Now, it wasn't legitimate, but we bought it a couple of years ago, and we're really able to legitimize the brand through formulation changes, through our DNA, brand character. We're authentic, we're independent. Our tone is a straight shooter, smart and bold. We're clinical, we're realistic, and we're not cold, and we don't exaggerate. Remember the better than Botox line. That's off the package now, because it really isn't better than Botox. I don't think there's anything really better than Botox if you've used Botox. Very good, very, very nice product. So the other thing in thinking about your brand and how you sell your brand is where you distribute. So I talk to people all the time who say to me, well, I'm going to distribute a little in the professional salon industry, and I'm going to go a little bit retail, and I'm going to go a little bit mass. And what happens is that muddles your exit strategy. Because the reality is a strategic buyer doesn't like that kind of distribution. What they like you to do is establish a distribution, be very productive in that distribution, be the best at Sephora, be the best at the salon business, and then give them white space, because that's how they're going to do your math. At the end of the day, if you're in 1,000 doors around the world and they have 25,000 doors, that's going to build your leverage to sell your company to somebody big. So Fakai's a perfect example. 1,000 doors, $50 million business, throwing off 22, 23% EBITDA. Procter looks at the business and says, I can go to Walmart, I can go to Target, I can go everywhere. Not such a great idea in hindsight, but nevertheless, that's how they built their business case. And so for them, the product had a value based on the numbers they built into that scalability. So if Dee Dee has a big school and she wants more schools, so she establishes herself regionally on the West Coast, and someone comes along and says, wow, I have salons on the East, I have schools on the East Coast and the Midwest. I can aggregate her distribution. That's going to get a premium for that business. So always leaving white space. Don't think about do salons, do 6, do 7, do a region. Don't spread yourselves too thin. Let the buyer do that hard work. And this is just talking about, you know, fundamentals, top line growth. So at the end of the day, Strivectin has been a turnaround, and I have every wrinkle and scar to show it. It has taken a full 2 years, but at the end of the day, make sure you're growing your top line business. When we get to the Q&A, you can ask Kelly, who's much more proficient, about if you need working capital, how do you get it? You know, private equity is tough because you're going to give up a majority of your business. Good private equity guys are not going to go, here's $100 million, I'm going to get, yeah, I'll take 25, 30% of your business. They're going to say, here's $100 million and good night, bye-bye. So you really have to think about what's your personal outcome? What do you want to have happen? Do you want a little bit of money to grow and prove your principle? Do you want out? Do you want out and you want to run it? And all of those things help you to decide what the strategy is. You know, the other, this is just giving you what a global brand is, and I don't know appropriate that is for many of you. But the biggest, where we're seeing the most growth in our industry now is outside the United States. The United States, North America is very mature at this point, and really great growth coming out of, obviously, Asia, Europe, and Latin America and EMEA. Really big growth, and accessible to all of you as well. 3 fundamental things in a company: people, product, and process. I don't care which order you put it in. I put it in, I'm a people first kind of gal. So I would say I have great people. I now have great product. I have crappy process, but it'll come over time. That's the hardest thing. That's the stuff that's really difficult. And as you grow, the process becomes more important, and it's going to create more challenges. How do I pay my books? How do I treat my staff? How do I not get disconnected in my decision making? Those kinds of things, and you really have to work hard on that. This is just operating a company. It's all the things you know. These are all the aspects that you should use this wheel as a guide to making sure all these fundamentals exist inside your business. So we're going to talk more about this, and this is where you should be asking your questions, honestly. And again, I know lots of people in the room here that I've worked with in the past. But so for a new salon owner who's really struggling with making payroll, working capital needs, how do I buy right so that I can pay for things and I don't have too much inventory? How do I buy right that I don't lose sales because I'm out of inventory? This is the part you have to sort of navigate through. And for most of you, my perspective would be private equity is your last go-to for raising money at your stages of business for the most part of you. You really want to get to a point where it's so valuable that you don't give up control of your business, unless you really want to get out.